My name is Barton Gott. I am a retired Justice of the Court of Appeal, 4th District.
And how's your last name spelled, sir?
G-A-U-T, 4th District, Division 2, Division 2.
Justice Ward.
And my name is James Ward. I am also a retired justice of the same court as Justice Gott here in Riverside.
All right, and Justice Ward, whenever you're ready, you can begin the interview.
Well, good morning. This is going to be an interview of Justice Barton Gott. The interview is undertaken as a part of a project of the California Courts of Appeal, the Judicial Council, and the Administrative Office of the Courts. This is an attempt to preserve the legacy of the court, and it is called the Appellate Court Legacy Project, wherein retired justices of the court are being interviewed in this fashion. My name is James Ward, as I said, and it's my pleasure to interview Justice Gott. He and I were colleagues for a number of years. And Bart, tell us your full name and when were you born?
Full name is Barton Gott, and I was born in 1935, October 2nd.
So you're coming up on Big 75.
Unfortunately.
I know you grew up in Hawthorne, California.
I
Maybe
did.
you can briefly tell us about your background there.
My family moved to Hawthorne when I was about 6 or 7. Went to grammar school and high school there. My dad worked for Northrop Aircraft, and then I left from high school and went to UCLA College.
Well, how was it you picked UCLA?
It was the closest one around.
And eventually you went on, and I'll ask you now at this point, though, why was it you picked Boalt Hall for your law school?
That's a good question. I was in the Army at the time, and I was applying to a number of schools, and Boalt Hall had a good reputation, and furthermore, it was easy. It was cheaper, so we went right there.
You have a reputation for scholarship in that you were a Phi Beta Kappa at UCLA, and you were Order of the Coif at Boalt Hall. Why don't you tell us about that?
I don't know if there's a heck of a lot to say. I worked my fanny off both places because it doesn't come easy to me. So I just worked on it.
You worked hard and long and got it. As I recall, you were number 2 in your law school class. Is that correct?
I think that's wrong. I think I was third.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But there is a significant personage who was number 1 in your class. Was it Justice Werdiger, Kay Werdiger, number 1, or do I have
no?
that
Well,
wrong?
she left. She was she was number 1, and she left before she graduated and got married, and I think she went to school in the Midwest. So she didn't come out with us.
Oh, but in any event, you were way up there at the top of your law school class.
I did my best, yes.
Okay. You mentioned being in the military. Tell us about your military career.
I was in ROTC at UCLA. When I graduated from UCLA, I was immediately sent to the Army, and I went to a program that requires you to teach you about being a snoop, basically, and where were we? We were in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was there for 3 months or so, and then I was transferred to Washington, D.C. and spent the rest of the time there, where we tried to find out who was, to make certain that people were basically honest.
Okay. And you mentioned your family. Tell us about your marriage and family.
My wife and I were married when we were in our third year at law school, third year in undergraduate school. We had a child when I was just started in the Army, and then we had another child when we were still in the Army. Then that was the first one was a son, second one was a daughter, third one is a son that we had when I was in just as I left law school, and the fourth one we had 5 years after that.
Did some of your kids follow you into the legal profession?
My older son went to Harvard, undergraduate in law school, and he is now a lawyer in Los Angeles with a pretty good firm.
You, of course, then graduated from law school, took the bar exam, and got a job. Tell us about that.
Well, somebody came up from Riverside looking at people at Bolt to see if they wanted to come down here. I talked to them. I also talked to some people in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, Hawaii, and stupid me decided to stay in Riverside.
Well, now that wasn't so stupid in the end, was it?
I guess not. So anyway, I came down to Riverside immediately thereafter, and when we weren't here more than 6 months when we had our third child.
I noted your starting salary at your firm. Tell us about
$500 a month, and that was.
And you were worth every penny.
Every bit of it, and it was more money than I was making in the Army, so we were feeling pretty good.
And the firm was?
Best and Krieger.
And that was your single employment as an attorney for the rest of your career, was it?
That's right.
And of course, at some point thereafter, you became a partner and were a partner with the firm till you were nearly a senior or the senior partner, weren't you?
Well, there was a couple of others that were ahead of me, but not many.
You had a reputation as an absolute workaholic. Tell us about that.
I spent a lot of time. I usually got to work about 7:30, worked all day, came back at night, and worked every weekend. I think I was a little slow, and so I had to spend a lot of time, and I did spend a lot of time and hours.
How did that impact your family, do you think?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not certain. The kids went on and did a nice job despite me. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your likes and dislikes in the practice of law.
Well, I enjoyed the law a lot. I did a lot of trial work. I did a lot of work for the telephone company, for a number of entities here in Riverside. A lot of them in the water area, and for a lot of companies up in the local mountains that had water involvements, and I worked for the the people who do work for. I'll have to hang that off. I can't think of it right now.
Well, you did some condemnation work too.
Yeah, a lot of condemnation work.
Yeah, and in fact, for a while you did libel work for the newspaper, didn't you?
I did.
So you had quite a varied practice, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Well,
Yeah.
you wouldn't say it, but I'll say it. You achieved a stellar reputation in the community as one of the best attorneys in town. The
Glad to hear you say that. It may not be true, but
the work that you did, you eventually got involved with bar association activities. Tell me about that.
yeah, I was in the bar association once I came to Riverside. I became president for a year. I was involved in a lot of the activities for the bar, and before and after being on the bar bar association. And I don't know. There's a lot of activity that, other than that was terribly relevant.
You were involved with barristers even before the bar
Right.
association.
Right. It's a good thing you recalled that, because I
Right.
forgot it.
And you also were involved with your church, were you not?
Yeah, the Congregational Church here in Riverside. I was on the board for quite a time. We're also created a group that we created a structure that a lot of people brought, that older people could stay there, and so I was on
That
the
was Plymouth Towers?
Plymouth Towers. Thank you. So I was on that for quite a while.
Of course, having started in the practice in, I believe it was 1962, is that correct?
62, I think that's right.
And then practiced for as many years as you did. Do you care to comment on the changes in the practice of law over that period of time? Did you see any?
What bothered me more than anything else about the practice of the law was that I thought a lot of the lawyers that I had in contact with were more concerned about how they can perhaps cheat, or maybe that's not a good word, how they can get by with things. I'll never forget a case where a lawyer saw some documents on the paper where we were taking some evidence, and he stole it and used it. And I saw a lot of stuff that happened like that I felt was really unfortunate and improper, and affects the everybody.
Did that have any influence in your decision to become a judge?
To some extent. I got to the point where I thought that the lawyers were fighting with each other, despite any effort to be honest about stuff. And some of the things they said and did, I thought were inappropriate, and I just felt it was time to try and get into something else. And I thought I could do some good stuff for the trial court.
And as it happened, Pete Wilson was the governor at that time. You knew Governor Wilson, didn't you?
Yes, I did. He was he was in my class at Bolt, and I really didn't know him very well. He was in another group than I, but yeah, he appointed me.
So you applied for the position with the Superior Court, got appointed. What sort of matters did you handle?
I heard only civil cases. Well, that's a lie. To some extent, now and then we would have some cases where you'd have to determine whether a criminal should go to trial. But other than that, I did all civil cases, and similar kinds of.
Because, of course, that was your expertise.
Oh yeah,
You had never practiced criminal law.
I had no idea what was criminal law had to do. So I did that, quite a bit of it.
Well, you told us about the fact that you worked nights and weekends while you were an attorney. Tell us about your typical day as a trial judge.
We'd get there before 8, working on the issues before the trial court, before the trial occurred, and I would hear the cases before trials commenced.
That's the law and motion
Law
calendar?
and motion calendar, thank you. And then we had at noon I frequently reviewed all the cases for the next day's trial and motion calendar. And then in the afternoons, I frequently worked with other people, other cases that might come to trial and that we tried to settle or to do some help before the next trial.
So you were sometimes there later into the afternoon and evening, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
When you did your law in motion, did you prepare and post tentative opinions as to those law in motion matters?
Always.
And so that was a burden that you had. You had to post them the night before so that when the attorneys came in the morning, they could find them on the bulletin board.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Right. So, how did you like that daily schedule?
I enjoyed it. It was a nice change from the law, from the practice of law. There was you were in not very far from me, in a lousy little place we were set in.
One of the world's crummiest courthouses.
That's right. It was a terrible place. Except you were upstairs, weren't you?
You were down in the dungeon.
That's right. I was in the dungeon, and there was another lawyer or judge right next door to me.
Dick Van Frank.
That's right. And he helped me a lot on whenever a criminal issue came up, because he'd had some experience in that by substantial.
Well, we should add here, for clarification, this was a temporary facility while Riverside's historic courthouse was being rehabbed. And we got stuck in an old municipal court that they sort of fashioned as a place for the Superior Court for, well, that's where I was.
Well, the whole time, weren't you?
No, I had a brief spell over at the historic courthouse.
Well, and that was a great building because thereafter the state, the county tore it apart down and they put a new building there.
The building is long gone.
Yeah.
Tell me about handling jury trials. Do you like that?
I really did enjoy it. I felt that I should be involved very heavily in voir dire. And I started almost every case doing all the voir dire and would give the lawyers some time, but not a lot of time. So I liked the opportunity to talk to them, get their views without having the lawyers giving them any kind of idea what they ought to be saying. So I did enjoy that.
And you enjoyed that whole jury process?
I did. I liked the jury.
I picked up somewhere in something written about you that special appearances were a special situation for you. Do you want to share that?
Special appearances.
By attorneys from on a case where they're not the regular attorney on the case.
I'm not sure I remember.
Well, the quote that I got was that you really detested special appearances and it made you angry because the attorneys were not prepared.
Oh, well, if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I didn't like people coming in that weren't ready to go. and wanted to come rush in and at the last minute and get some kind of make an appearance, and so I did not appreciate that.
Probably a holdover from the days when you were always, as it was your reputation, extremely well prepared in everything that you did in the practice of law. You just expected that from attorneys as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of them that came in were not too well prepared, which was unfortunate.
Generally, how do you feel the quality of advocacy was among the attorneys that you encountered?
Well, it was spotty. Some people I thought were superb. Some of them came in and were only halfway working at it, and a lot of them, I guess they had so much work that they didn't prepare as well as they should have, and some of the documents that they were submitting, particularly on the early mornings, weren't very well done.
Well, you were on the trial court for less than 2 years.
That's right.
And you were appointed, I believe, in 1995. Is that correct?
I'll rely on you. It's probably right, Jim.
I think I have that right. But you were on the trial court for less than 2 years.
Yes, I was.
And do you have any other general observation about the trial court judge's job? Some people say it's a lonely job, where you do everything all by yourself.
Well, I think that's true. That's why it was nice to have, for example, you around to ask questions because you've been around longer, and my next door neighbor, whose name you've already told me. It was nice to have people around and give you suggestions on issues, but a lot of it's you got to do on yourself.
Because minute by minute, as a case progresses, and even before the jury, the trial judge has to make each decision.
That's right. That's right.
Well, did you like that challenge?
I did. Yeah, I'm not sure I always did it right, but I thought it was enjoyable.
But overall, you enjoyed your time in the Superior Court, didn't you?
I did, very much so.
In fact, I have to say, you always told me that you'd have no hesitancy going back there and being a Superior Court judge. You liked it.
I did. I did.
Right.
I'm not sure that I'd like to go back if I doing criminal cases, but civil cases would be fine.
But in any event, you moved on to the appellate court. Tell us how that came to pass.
You know, I don't know why I applied, but I did. And Pete Wilson appointed me again. And I don't know, it seemed like an area where I could maybe do some good. I saw you were over here, and I thought, well, shoot, I'll come over there and tell him what to do.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Well, I got to the Superior Court 1 year ahead of you and to the Appellate Court 1 year ahead of you. But,
that's right. But
so you followed me over to, it was San Bernardino at that time.
Oh, you know, that's right. I keep forgetting that. You know, and that was such a cruddy building, and it was a lousy place. And
well, it wasn't bad for all of us, but it was particularly bad for you.
That's
Tell
right.
us why.
Well, because when I got in, there was no room, and I had a office that was about 4 feet on one side and 4 feet on the other side. My folks that were working for me were sitting in another one chambers, and it wasn't even a chambers. It was just I don't know what it was for.
It was a library conference.
I guess it was a library conference room. So it was kind of it was miserable. And the building itself, in general, was not very good.
Remember the bugs?
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't a neat place at all.
But you persevered, and then eventually you got a chambers, and eventually you came over here to Riverside.
Yeah, I think you moved your chambers, didn't you? And then I moved in your old one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wondered why you didn't do that quicker.
Well, it was because we had to wait for a justice
Yes,
to
we did.
retire.
Yeah, we did.
And then you finally did get a Chambers. Well, tell me your observations of the differences between being a trial court judge and an appellate court justice.
Well, as a trial court judge, you know, everything was on you. I had to make the decisions. I had to make a decision, decide where the case should go, who should be coming in. All these questions are something that the trial judge has to think about. When you come to the Court of Appeal, I'm just one of 3 people in each cases. In addition to that, I have substantial number of people who are working on the cases that I am working on. These folks that have worked for me have done a wonderful job, and they're very helpful. And so it's not all on me as it used to be in the trial judge court.
Do you care to comment on what you consider to be the important qualities of a person to take on the job of a justice of the Court of Appeal?
Well, I think you have to be willing to, first of all, review in great detail cases as they come up, and have to be prepared to review the cases they're relying upon in addition to the briefs that you receive, and that takes a lot of time. Even if you have somebody, and I had them, as did you, who were helping with you in reviewing all of that, you have to personally do it all. That's part of it. And another thing is you have to work with the other people that are with you on the case.
So the word collegiality comes to mind.
Absolutely. That was nicely done.
That's a quality you think is important.
I do indeed.
If you had to rank collegiality and scholarship, where would you put the two? One ahead of the other, or both the same?
Very close. I think collegiality is very important, but so is also scholarship. You've got to be able to analyze the cases on the documents, and it's pretty close.
Well, speaking of the people who assisted, you're referring first and foremost, I assume, to research attorneys at the Court of Appeal. During your tenure at the court, how many research attorneys did you have?
I started off with 2. They have continued to this day. In addition to that,
you mean the same 2 people?
Same 2. Sorry. I also had another woman who worked for me for quite a while and left and went to a college. And I've had others interspersed, but I always had the same primary 2 that I started out with.
But in addition to those 2 research attorneys, there were periods of time when you would have another 1 or half a person, as it were, assigned to you as well to assist you with your work.
Correct.
Of course, when you came to the appellate court, which I believe was in, well, now I'm losing it here.
I am too.
1997, isn't it?
I think that's right, Jim.
Yeah. In 1997, the caseload of this division was horrendous, was it not?
It was. I can remember when I first went in San Bernardino, there was an area where there was rafts of cases that were behind. There was a number. We had an enormous number of cases that had to be
backlog.
Done. Backlog, yes.
In fact, it was like a huge room that was not a huge room, but it was a large room where the shelves were just completely covered with those cases.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But Justice Ramirez, who was the presiding justice, undertook some efforts on that. Tell us about that.
Well, I don't know that I can tell you what he did. He was very involved in trying to get this backlog worked out, and he made sure that we pushed as much as we could to get into the cases and to get into those areas that the cases that were backlogged.
Remember, he set quotas for all of us.
Yes, I guess he did. I sort of frankly had forgotten that, Jim.
Yeah.
There was a lot he wanted us to do, and I thought he did a superb job getting it. And I've forgotten when we were in a better position, but it took a while.
But do you remember at its peak what the numbers were that we were handling?
Jim, I can't remember the numbers at all.
Well, there was at one time, just to refresh your recollection, we were in the neighborhood of signed opinions, each justice, that is the author of the opinion, at around 200 opinions a year. Do you recall that?
I hadn't remembered that it was that many.
And then, of course, that also meant that you signed off on another 400 opinions, and that's during a year's period.
Right.
That was at its peak.
That's right, because we had to be sign off on the justices who had another 200 themselves.
Right. What is your feeling about the process that California has for appellate court justices and their law clerks? There are other systems in other states where they don't rely so heavily on the law clerks. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think the system we have here is superb. I think these people do a wonderful job. The people I've had, and I think the people you had, Jim, were competent and worked hard and continue to work hard. And I think that's, I don't know, you probably know better than I how they do it in other states.
Do you have any thoughts on the impact that research attorneys have on the process because they do so much of the writing?
Well, they do a lot of the writing. I think it's been important for us to try and reviewing it and confirm what they're doing and tell them where we think they ought to be going or how they ought to be doing it. But I think the process here is superb. I don't know, Jim, how they do it in other states. I assume they are somewhat similar to ours.
No, not always. But what about the number of cases that are or are not published? What's your feelings on that?
Well, I think we have to publish those cases that we think are significant enough that they will have an effect upon the people in the state of California. And that I think the Supreme Court doesn't always agree with us on that, but I think the publication is something that's important. We don't want to publish stuff that's just junk or that's duplication of what's already been done. But I think we've been pretty careful to try and publishing where it seems necessary to give help to the lawyers in the state.
Well, you personally, do you feel that you published, because you made those decisions, you published more or less than the other justices on the court, or more or less than other justices in the state?
My reaction is I have probably published less from others in the state, and I think our judges here probably are published less than
I think the statistics bear that out.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. But you're comfortable, though, with the arrangement that just a percentage of the cases, as determined by the court, are published and not all of them.
Oh, yes. It doesn't make any sense to publish them all. It's a duplication of effort.
How do you feel generally about the decision-making process? That is, the panels of three and otherwise the decision-making process in the court?
Well, I think the panels of three are very important because sometimes some ideas I have may be contrary to the people who are on the same case I'm on, and they frequently will have an information that I either don't have or hadn't thought of. So the having three people available to look at each case is important.
How do you feel about dissenting and concurring opinions?
Well, I think I didn't do a lot of dissenting or concurrent opinions, but I think it's important.
And why is that?
Well, because you know, if I had a case that I thought the other two were wrong or shouldn't have been handled that way, I think it's my obligation to dissent, or to at least concur on to show what's relevant.
I assume that you encountered, well, I know you encountered, in fact, a situation where the Supreme Court would disagree with some position that you took. Did that bother you?
Well, I just can't believe that they'd be correct. No, yeah, you know, they've done some things that I still don't agree with, but that's their decision. It doesn't excite me at all.
Now, this court is unique in the state and maybe the nation in having a tentative opinion program. Do you care to comment on that?
I think that's the best thing that should have been that is done, and it should be done everywhere.
Well, first tell us what it is done, and tell us why you think it's good.
Okay, so when we send, what we do is we send out the tentative opinions to the lawyers, showing what we decide we think is the right decision. And when those lawyers come in to argue, they have the right to refer to our opinion, to tell us where they think we're wrong. It gives them an opportunity to analyze their view more quickly and hopefully more accurately. And furthermore, I think it shortens the time for oral argument. They know exactly where we're going and why, and if they think we're wrong, they can tell us that. But I think it's a superb concept, and I am shocked that nobody else, either in the state of California or elsewhere, are using it.
As you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I said maybe you would.
Well, jumping back in time, when you were an attorney, you did some appellate work, right?
I did, that's right.
And did you ever appear before this court when a tentative opinion was rendered?
As my recollection, no. I don't think they had them at the time. If so, I'm sure it wasn't occurred.
Well, you may be wrong on that, because I know when I was in practice they had the tentative opinions.
I didn't. Well, maybe you're right, Jim. I sure don't recall it.
Well, in any event, we like the tentative opinion program, right?
That's right, and the fact that you think I'm wrong is probably your fault.
There you go.
Yeah, no, it's a great program.
The question of oral argument comes up. Give us your opinions on oral argument.
Well, first of all, I think it's our tentative opinions are very significant because it lets the lawyers know where we are and to zero in on the questions that we are concerned about. On the whole, I think oral argument is poorly done. I think a lot of these lawyers come in without having really carefully, I shouldn't say all of them, but too many come in who have not carefully analyzed it. They talk too long. They aren't able to articulate their disagreement with the other side. So I'm frankly a little disappointed in it.
But still in all then, you don't see much value then in the oral?
Oh no, it's got it. Oh no, I think it's very important. It's very important.
But you're just disappointed in some of the advocacy?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
well,
did I answer that correctly, Jim?
Yeah, right. But speaking of the advocacy, and you mentioned the advocacy of oral argument, well, before we go beyond that, did you ever encounter, well, I know you did, where trial attorneys would come in and try to argue the case to you as if you were the jury?
Oh, I think a lot of it's that. Yeah, it's a wholly different idea. It's mostly usually the legal aspects of it, and there are specific points they should be picking up, and they frequently don't do it.
Right. Well, what's your feeling about the quality of the briefs that you received during your 10-plus years on the court?
I think on the whole I was disappointed. I think a lot of them, and that doesn't apply to all of them, but I think a lot of them are too verbose, too little thought given to the purpose of the brief, and it really gives you an idea that they are kicking it out because they're too busy to really sit down and analyze it.
This court has a unique history of settlement efforts by the court. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Justice Ramirez makes an effort to analyze cases that he thinks that have been filed here, and thinks that finds those that he thinks are worthwhile to try to settle them, and we've all spent time working on the settlement program here in the court, as well as some of the lawyers in the area have come over and worked hard on settlement.
As volunteers? As
volunteers, yes. I think the system has worked very well. Until I had some problems, I spent a lot of time doing that. And you don't win them all, you don't. But they spend it results in a substantial decline in cases.
A lot of them are eliminated from the system.
Right.
Well, in fact, jumping back once again, when you were an attorney, did you participate as a volunteer pro bono settlement mediator, as it were, when you were an attorney?
No,
Oh.
I never did it. I don't know that you're saying that because people were doing that. I guess you were doing that?
Well, I did. I thought you did too.
I don't think so. For what, the Court of Appeal?
Yeah.
No.
They used a lot of attorneys as pro bono mediators or settlement.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did that, Jim.
Well, let me ask you this. Once you came on the court, however, Justice Ramirez did assign you to try to settle civil cases.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Another feature of this court that I think both you and I appreciated was the community outreach program that it has had for a few years. Tell us about that.
Again, Justice Ramirez has been the guy who's really spearheaded that, and he has taken us to various high schools, as far as not Barstow, but up above. Where did we go?
Well, we went up into the Inyo.
Yeah,
we went up to. Right.
I was thinking Inyo, Riverside, San Bernardino, the desert, and we would go in and argue a case or two before the high school students, and then we would go to their room and discuss with them the cases that they've heard, talk to them about the law, talk to them about what they're interested in. I thought it was a great program, and I think it's still going on. In fact, I think the guys are going up to Inyo, or either have gone out or going out this month.
And you think that's a valuable program? Why?
Well, first of all, it gives the students an opportunity to see how the system works. They see how lawyers argue to a court of appeal. They have an opportunity to then discuss about it because we went into each, we would break up and go to various rooms. They would have opportunity to discuss with us what they saw, and we gave them an opportunity to ask questions about the law, what they want to do, perhaps in the law, anything they want to do. And I thought it worked very well. I brought my wife a time or two, and she went in with us, and she stood there and even asked answered some questions.
A great program.
Yeah, it's a great program.
Yeah. During your tenure, you were appointed to sit on cases at the Supreme Court of California. Tell us about that.
I only have done 2 of them. As I mentioned, one of them was a miserable case in which a number of people were killed. I found the whole thing a waste of my time and effort. They sent me because apparently one of the justices either was gone or couldn't come. So basically, they threw me in wherever they could find me. They didn't really care, I don't think, about what I was doing or why. When we had our meetings after the termination of the argument, and each person had an opportunity to discuss what they thought about the argument. They gave me a short shrift, and basically it was a waste of my time and theirs.
Don't hold back your opinion on this. The issues as perceived by the public and the press about appellate courts involve judicial philosophy of the court and the justices, and judicial activism and political persuasion and all of that sort of thing. Do you care to comment at all on how you saw that play out while you were an appellate justice?
I'm not sure. The question as, well, really, what's the question, Jim?
Well, just basically, did you think that political philosophy played a major part in the decision-making process, and that there were, for instance, significant differences of judicial philosophy among your colleagues?
Well, I think there were some differences. A lot of my colleagues were people who had a lot of experience in the criminal arena. You and I were primarily civil experience, and I think their views on some of these things were different than mine, and maybe because they knew more about what they were doing than I. But I thought there was a difference in the outlook on what we.
Well, how would you work it out when there were those differences?
Well, if we had to the point where it looked like I thought that they were doing something incorrectly, I'd go over and sit down and talk to them. We have a great group, and nobody has any objection in to sit down and talk about it and trying to decide what to do. And some of them would tell me, because of their background in the criminal law, they would give me a lot of help because they know what was going on.
Eventually, you made the decision to give up your time on the Court of Appeal. Do you want to share your feelings on that?
Yeah, I guess part of it was because I've had a lot of sickness, and I've had some problems that have been reoccurring, but I feel bad.
In other words, you wish you hadn't retired?
Right.
You'd like to still be doing the work, huh?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
How would you like to be remembered as an appellate court justice?
I was somebody that was just worked and did what he could do. I don't know that I have done anything significant enough to require anybody to be to even care, to be honest.
Well, that's simply not true. Everybody cares a lot for you, and you have a wonderful reputation, but you wouldn't say that. I will.
I appreciate that.
When you look back on your time, a brief time, a couple of years, on the Superior Court, and then over a decade on the Court of Appeal, do you see any challenges facing the judiciary today that are different than back when you were in the practice of law?
That's a terrible question.
I thought it was a good question.
Well, I've frequently thought as a lawyer that a lot of lawyers were primarily concerned not about the propriety of what was occurring, but how are they going to make their win and get their money. And I'm not sure that's still the case, but that's an area that bothers me. In fact, some of the lawyers that come up here and argue, sometimes I feel that they're just kind of going through the motion. They want to get their money and get out. And that may not be a fair observation. I wish you hadn't asked me the question.
Okay, I'll drop it. Well, let me ask you another tough one. The administration of the courts has changed enormously since we were young attorneys, and even young judges for that matter. There's a lot more centralization in San Francisco and a lot more bureaucracy. You have any thoughts on that?
The bureaucracy is a shock to me. Jim, you and I were together, primarily you were the key, in reviewing and modifying the civil jury instructions. And I can remember when we'd go into San Francisco, and we would walk into some of the areas, and there were one or two people there working for the primarily in the area we were in, and then after 3 or 4 years, the place was packed with people. I got the feeling that there were more people there in San Francisco that are than necessary, and it was. I'm not sure it was helpful for the legal system. It bothered me.
Well, speaking of the jury task force, tell us about that.
Well, there was a guy named, what was that guy's name that was in charge of that place? I think it was you, Jim.
Yeah, that's right.
And that we have, what was there, about 12 or 14 people.
It got bigger than that,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
And we had about 12 or 14 people that met every other month, and part of the group would meet in between that time to review and analyze and modify the civil jury instructions. And we had some people who were bright, able people, and who worked very hard on it. And I think we did a great job.
That was a plain English initiative in part, was it not?
Yeah, sure.
Did you appreciate that?
Oh, of course. Some of that, I was going to use the wrong word. Some of that stuff that people had used for years was inappropriate, and it was time to bring it up to current. And I thought primarily because of your leadership, we did a terrific job. And I hope you'll pay me when I get done with it.
Yeah, I'll give you your tip later. But even before you got involved in the jury task force that you've mentioned here, you had been involved with writing jury instructions, had you not?
A little bit.
Didn't you do some help Matthew Bender with?
Yeah, that's right. You know, I'd forgotten that, Jim. How did you remember that? Yeah, I had done some of that. I don't know that it was an awful lot, but yeah, I did do some of that.
You were an author of one of the chapters of one of the Matthew Bender books.
How'd you remember that, Jim? I did. I was. It's a good thing you were here. I need help wherever possible.
Well, you know, it's often thought that some people say, well, it's been a good run. Is that the way you look back on your judicial career?
I think so. I enjoyed both the trial court and I enjoyed it here. I don't know that I always did a wonderful job, but I enjoyed it and I tried.
As you look back, were there any things you would have done differently?
I don't think so. I think I did what as much as I could.
You've had delivered to you as a part of the retirement process an accumulation of all the opinions that you authored.
Yeah.
Did you have occasion to look it over, and did that prompt any thoughts?
I did. I looked at. There was a bunch of them that I marked. We had some. I don't know that I can pick it without my note, but there were some cases. I guess I can grab them, can I?
Certainly.
There were some cases that we had here that I thought were really very interesting, and you know, I can remember one that we most recently had was a case where a guy had to register under PC 290.011 as to whether this is the guy who's had some questions about his whether he is what do I want to say, whether he had to register as an offender, and on that case we decided that in addition to registering for where he was living, he was spending an awful lot of time to his girlfriend, and they decided he had to do it there too to show it as his registration. We had a joint powers authority case we had out here in March, and Marchfield, and it was we approved a grocery distribution facility there, claiming people had claimed there was insufficient environmental review, and we found that there was sufficient review there. So there was some other stuff. There was one of them in particular that I remember that I sort of liked, if I can even find it.
Well, you obviously enjoyed, I guess, going back and looking those cases over.
I did. Some of them I didn't even remember, but some of them I did, and I enjoyed going back into them. I remember one, Granovitz versus Redlands Unified School District. I think you were still here, Jim.
I believe it was.
Where that was a case where the kids' parents came in and had an informal meeting with the principal, and the folks said that that was insufficient. That wasn't due process, and we rejected that review. So there are other things like that. There was one, People versus Green, that I remember, and I can't even find it in here, where we let a, where the heck is it?
Let me give you time to find that while I change tape. Well, let me start my tape back up. We got about a minute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well then we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating that you had occasion to go back and remember those individual cases. Overall, I assume you're satisfied with the work you did and you're happy to have done it?
Yeah, I am. It was a good time, and I hope I was worthwhile.
Well, the prevailing opinion is that you were very worthwhile and did a wonderful job at
Somebody forced you to say that, didn't they?
Yeah, right, your wife bribed me yet. No, Bart, everybody thinks very highly of you, and I was delighted to have the opportunity to do this interview. Have any final words?
No, I appreciate your effort, and as always, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we did it in an hour.
Yeah, I knew there. You know, you probably put it in 2 hours because you have so much recollection.